Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is our first ever online EE luncheon event. Your waiters will be around shortly to take your orders. Kidding, but thank you so much for joining us today. We're here to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Essentially Ellington. We're so grateful to have you with us. My name's David Taylor. I am one of the directors of production for Jazz at Lincoln Center's House of Swing. Today, I'm just here to act as a technical host and help ensure things run smoothly. I'll be with you a little bit later to run through the details of the question and answer session. But in the meantime, without further ado, let's go ahead and kick things off. I'm going to throw it over to our Vice President of Education, Mr. Todd Stoll. Todd?
Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome and thank you for joining us for this special event. Although we aren't gathered in the Appel Room like we typically are for our annual Essentially Ellington Luncheon, we're happy to be with you here in the virtual House of Swing today. We sincerely want to thank you all for joining us and for your generous support of Jazz at Lincoln Center and of our education initiatives.
Here you go.
This week, we commemorate the 25th anniversary of an extraordinary program which has given so many young people a transformative experience to the music of one of the world's most influential and original artists, Duke Ellington. Essentially Ellington began with generous support from our former board member, the late Jack Rudin. His wife, Susan, remains its champion today. Susan and Jack, along with Gail and Al Engelberg, created a generous endowment to sustain this program into the future, and for this, we are deeply grateful. Beyond exposing nearly 1 million students around the world to the incomparable music of this artist, Essentially Ellington helps to ensure a vibrant future for jazz by expanding its audience while developing the next generation of performers. We thank all of our supporters who help make all of our education programs, including Essentially Ellington, possible. We want to give additional attention to those who made an investment in EE this year with a gift of $25,000 and above. We call this the 25 for 25. Thank you all so much. Additionally, we'd also like to thank Helen and Bob Appel, the Augustine Foundation, the Charles Evans Hughes Memorial Fund, Con Edison, the Ella Fitzgerald Charitable Fund, Entergy, and the Hearst Foundation for their support. I would also like to thank our extraordinary co-chairs, Susan Rudin, Diane Coffey, Susan Kahn, Jeanette Davis-Loeb, Sandra Krasnoff, and honorary chair Gail Engelberg for their efforts today. Their work has been a crucial part of sustaining the legacy of Essentially Ellington, and for this we all owe you a debt of gratitude. Thank you. Over these past 25 years, the Essentially Ellington program has been at the very heart of Jazz at Lincoln Center's commitment to advancing an appreciation for jazz among young people. This program has ensured that students all over the world are promoting, preserving, and performing the very best of our music. Today, Wynton Marsalis will be in conversation with EE alumna Alexa Tarantino. Alexa is an award-winning jazz saxophonist, a woodwind doubler, composer, and a superb educator. She holds a master's degree in jazz studies from the Juilliard School and a bachelor's degree from the Eastman School of Music. In addition to performing with artists such as Cecile McLaurin-Salvant, Ulysses Owens, and the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, Alexa has founded her own renowned jazz camp, is an in-demand clinician, and is on the faculty of our own Jazz at Lincoln Center education program. We are thrilled to have her here with us today. And with that, Wynton, I turn it over to you.
Okay. Well read, Todd. Our trumpet playing reading has gotten better as we've gotten older.
Yes, it has.
It's an honor for me to be with you all. You know, every year is the highlight of my year. This luncheon is always beautiful. I get to see hats and stuff. This year, not so much. But I want to introduce a young lady who she's an indomitable force for expression, for education, and for absolute excellence. She started her own jazz festival in Rockport, Massachusetts, the Rockport Jazz Workshop, when she was only 22 years old. And she's distinguished herself through positive and effective action in every situation I've encountered her in. You can say at school as a student at Juilliard, on gigs, she just plays her tail off. Community action, meeting with people, speak with them, political activity around the music, you name it. When you call her, you get instant excellence and instant action. She's very active online during this quarantine period and currently gives weekly concerts from home, of which she donates a portion to artist relief funds. She does a new online show for Jazz at Lincoln Center called The Well-Rounded Musician. It's on Thursday nights. So I want y'all to check her out. And because her summer program and many other summer programs have been canceled, she and a fellow teacher launched an online summer jazz series called A Step Ahead Summer. She offers jazz online for all ages and abilities. Those who want to know about the music, whether you play or not, check out A Step Ahead Summer. She is also always very insightful on many, many issues. And we at Jazz at Lincoln Center often rely on her assessment and her judgment. Now, I'm looking forward to hearing what she has to say. And I wish I had even better words to say to describe the respect and clarity that she brings. Actually, that's the name of her new recording that's out. It's called Clarity, and I guess it's autobiographical. It's a pleasure to welcome Miss Alexa Tarantino. Alexa.
Thank you, Winton. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. It's so great to be here. Thanks so much.
Okay. Well, my first question for you is, I want you to give us a little bit of your history and describe your experience at EE.
Sure. So I came up through the public school education programs in West Hartford, Connecticut, which just coincidentally, my family ended up there, and the town happened to have an outstanding jazz education program. And EE was part of those milestones that they had for students. And so I knew from fourth grade on that I wanted to be a professional saxophonist. And EE was just one of those things that every year everybody geared up for. And I have to say it has taught, I think, all of the EE alums so many qualities, musical and non-musical. And it just became an event every year that people looked forward to, whether or not you were selected to participate. I think it's become a foundational and influential event for students all over the country, and thankfully this year all over the globe. So I'm very happy to be here and proud to be an alum.
So what made you at 9 years old want to play a saxophone?
Actually, I saw another EE and Juilliard alum. I saw Erica von Kleist play the saxophone because she went through the Hall High School program as well. And so I remember my parents tell the story. I was sitting there listening to one of the high school jazz concerts, and I just kind of tugged on my mom's jacket and said that's what I wanted to do. And so Erica has been an amazing friend and mentor to me as well. And just to I think obviously as a female, for her to be my first sight in terms of professional jazz saxophone is pretty rare also. So for me, I always felt like, okay, I saw her do it, I can do this. Like, there's no reason why can't I do this, and a lot of people around me coming up would say, oh, are you sure about this? I've never seen anybody like you do this. Like, do women have the lungs to do this? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, this is totally normal, So for that to be my experience from a very young age was really impactful.
Wow, that's fantastic, because we all remember her. Erica, we remember her in 1997 or 98 playing Prelude to a Kiss. And we were all in Avery Fisher Hall and hollering and screaming because of the clarity and quality of her playing. Yeah. So I want to ask you, what years were you at the festival, and take us through some of the mechanics of it, like making your tape, coming, being accepted, losing, being there, seeing people. Just give us a sense of place.
Sure. So I was there in 2008. That was the year that we won Best Saxophone Section, Outstanding Saxophone Section, I will say. But the interesting thing is that I was not like an outstanding soloist. So, and I don't know. That wasn't really my place. But I think it's interesting that maybe the section thing was really what I took from it, because I just remember we would have countless late night rehearsals. This program, my high school in particular, was very intense. But we had rehearsals every day in school, and then Tuesday nights for a few hours. And then on the weekends, I would have all the saxophone guys over and make a bunch of food. And I would run the saxophone sectional for several hours, that afternoon at my house. And that was the highlight of my high school education. That's what I remember. I didn't go to parties. I didn't, I did sports in the beginning, but I don't remember, much of it. It was all about that community. And I think that gave me an opportunity to develop my leadership and communication skills, which I think at that age is very rare. And so I just remember it wasn't that we prepared for EE all year either. Hull High School actually had a quite active second half of their year. So it was sort of like once we got the tapes ready and sent them off, we were moving on to learn like 75 other charts. And so that was one thing I really appreciated too, because I know, maybe in some other situations, this rightfully so is the all year focus for some schools. But for us, we were taught, yes, this is a competition. Yes, this is a festival, but this is not all that all that we do. We are doing other things to hopefully develop skills for if we do get the opportunity to go to New York, we are coming in well-rounded, prepared, and I think they also maybe didn't want us to kind of burn out playing the same stuff all year long.
Right.
So it was just great. And I remember getting to New York City, and at that time in my life, I knew I wanted to be a professional performer, but I wasn't quite sure if I was going to make it like as a saxophonist. I loved teaching, and so I thought maybe I would teach. I still have a picture of you and I back by the Ertegun Hall of Fame over there, and with all the pictures when I first met you. And so I think it was a great bonding experience we didn't place, but it was a great bonding experience for the band. I think Hall had placed before, and maybe there was a little bit of pressure there, but it was just an amazing opportunity seeing the jam sessions among all of the students. That built a sense of, okay, there are other people like me in the world that want to do this. This is possible. And I think when you are like the jazz band nerd in your high school and you go to a place like EE, where Jazz at Lincoln Center is bringing all of these people together, and you realize it's just actualizing your dreams. You realize this is possible.
Mm-hmm. So you touched on something that I want to magnify. We are a festival and a competition. Some of our colleagues, friends that we love very much, don't want to participate in anything that is a competition. So I want you to clarify for us how you feel about the notion of competition with awards and outstanding this and that, and the concept of a festival, which is we're all here to celebrate the achievements and the music of Duke Ellington and other arrangers and composers. Can you delve into those two parts and tell me what you think, and then summarize it for me?
Sure. Well, I think as you can tell, since I had to drop in the little outstanding saxophone section, you can tell I appreciate a little bit of competition here and there, and I definitely have a little bit of that edge in me, and I think that portion of the event definitely fuels the adrenaline. But I would say what's really special about EE is there's no negative connotation around the competition element. And I think, everyone playing and everyone studying Duke's music realizes that just the fact that so many people are playing this music and bringing it to life is incredible and something to celebrate in itself. So many young people. And so I think in terms of the competition, I'm a fan. I think it's totally appropriate. I think this year I judged, I'm on the judges panel with you this week, and then I also was involved in the comments only, the non-competitive portion. And I think it's perfectly reasonable because these factors that we're discussing, like swing, rhythm section, improvisation, thematic development, dynamics, all of these things are just are elements to help these students play on a higher level and on a deeper level. So to that point, I think the competition aspect is effective. It's important for students to get feedback. And I'm not sure that, the students view it as, oh, we rank here and we rank here. I think they're just happy to get the feedback and to be celebrated, recognized. In terms of the festival portion, I think the big factor and the big bonus there is just the camaraderie aspect, and the fact that you're able to bring, in this year, 23 bands together to form this community, this 2020 community, and to be inspired by fellow peers, to hear how another tenor saxophonist plays that solo, to hear how another clarinet section interprets the mooch. I've gone to do clinics places where I did the Arizona All-State Jazz Band this year on behalf of Jazz at Lincoln Center. I was conducting, and I forget what piece we were playing. It might have been Symphony and Riffs, and the trombone player came up to me like so excited on the lunch break. Miss Tarantino, can we do this trombone break here? I was watching a video of Roosevelt from 2007, and that's what they did, and I really liked it. So these videos that JELC has out of, all the previous performances, their students are inspired, they're informed by it, and they're connecting with players from all over the country. So that's the festival aspect for me, and I think it's amazing.
I want to, one thing that happened in the festival, because we judge and stuff. I've been there for 25 years, but at a certain point, the students started to give standing ovations to each other, started to cheer on each other. That's not something that we scripted. It was like a kind of natural thing that happened. And because, I mean, in my time, we went to jazz competitions and we didn't do that type of thing. Is that something that you notice, or is that typical in other festivals, or what do you think the genesis of it is? Or what are your observations about the way each band cheers for other bands?
It's not typical for other festivals that I've seen. Other festivals that I've seen, oftentimes a band will play and then they'll leave and they might not stay, or something.
Right.
It's maybe not as involved. And I've definitely noticed that that vibe from the students. I mean, they're just, even from the past few years, just sitting in the hall and watching and supporting. Even in moments maybe where somebody had a rough time, maybe somebody had a squeak or something,
Right,
everybody rallies together, because I think it's a tribute to Duke's music, because I think for everybody, after you've been, I mean, maybe you don't even have to have studied the music to feel this, but I think after these students have put in the sweat and all the hours of practice, I think that hearing it performed on the stage, it almost feels like coming home. It's just like a breath of fresh air. And there are so many qualities and emotions in Duke's music that just allow you to feel those natural human emotions of joy, sadness, frustration, all these moments that Duke is able to bring out. So for some of those charts where there are like those signature, moments in the music where something like Rockin' in Rhythm, for example, when I hear Rockin' in Rhythm, or if I hear Chinoiserie, like I am immediately jump up and start dancing. And I think at that point, the students in the hall, they're just like, it's electric. And I think they want to see their peers succeed. They want to hear how everybody else is interpreting it. And I think they just feel the energy of Duke's music, which is amazing when you think about all of the other influences that they have in the world outside of this, everything on social media, technology, the music. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you, you mentioned earlier that you were a judge this year. This is the first year that we've had alumni be judges. It was you and Riley. And it was very interesting for us, Dennis and myself and Helen Sung. We were noticing how discerning you all were. So it was I thought that you all were going to be more lenient, but you all actually were much more acute in your observations about things. Riley, he didn't want to let a trumpet player. But I was actually heartened by that, the level of integrity that you all brought to it, the clear way that you assessed it. And I want to ask you, does the fact that you went through the program, does it affect your judging, or what are you bringing to the judging of the festival?
Yes, the fact that I think that we went through the program, I think we're probably a little bit protective of, we're like, we really want people to, can't be messing around. And I think, we've learned that from you and from the energy at Jazz at Lincoln Center as well. I mean, you've always inspired and encouraged us to not stray from our beliefs and our own voices. And that's so funny. So yeah, I think in listening to the students play, I perhaps I'm a little bit on the harsh side of judging. Like I really, I'm at like in the intonation freak. Like in high school, that was my nickname. Like it was always about intonation. I was always asking my section, like, taking notes, all this stuff. So I'm really into the section playing of things, and that's because to me that demonstrates the most community engagement, respect, responsibility. That demonstrates to me the most that you're working as a team player, which is the point of all of this music, in my opinion. So if somebody's not dealing in the section, then I might have some comments for them. But yeah, I think, and also listening, just because we've been inside it and we know what it takes. And I think we also appreciate varying interpretations, but I think for the most part, we all know that we're here to see, who can really demonstrate the maximum interpretation of Duke's music and bring it to life. And so there are central qualities to Duke's music and the style in which the musicians in the orchestra played. And it's not so much about forcing people to play in that style for the rest of their lives, but I think the biggest lesson that enables these students to become well-rounded musicians is recognizing what the task is from this music. So for me, if I'm going to play an alto, if I'm going to play Isfahan or Prelude to a Kiss, I'm going to use a certain style of vibrato that I might not use on my own gigs, but I love that style of vibrato and I'm going to deliver. And so I think it's about recognizing like what you need to do, what makes this music unique, and delivering on that. And that's something that whatever gigs they'll have in the future, they'll be called on to do the same thing.
Do you feel that there's a meaning in the music that is greater than the style of it?
Yes, absolutely. It's those human qualities. It's hearing like the cries for sadness on like a trombone, on a muted, trombone moment. And I think it's some of those stylistic things that enable that to come out, those scoops and embellishments and glisses and bends. And something about the buzz of a section with the vibrato, that's a very technical thing for people to be able to do. But at the end of the day, listening to it in the audience, it impacts the listener with something much more emotional than thinking that it's vibrato.
Well, I want to take you into something a little more specific, and then we'll go out to the general, but it's in line with what you're saying. For years, there's no way for you to know this. For years, we would argue about the difference between a doubler or do we give people awards on two instruments, and we never really solved the problem. We didn't, but you put it in focus for us in the meeting we had 2 days ago, where we were talking about players. I want you to describe for everybody, because saxophone players play more instruments. They play saxophone, they play flute, they play soprano, saxophone, clarinet. So we call that doubling. But sometimes people can actually play clarinet and actually play tenor saxophone. So we're always confused about what award to give for what. But you very succinctly explained it. Explain that to us,
Sure.
the challenges and so on and so forth, because you clarified it for us.
Sure. Yeah, of course. So I'm a stickler for woodwind doubling. And so that's one thing I was really listening for, because it's required in this music, especially moving between saxophone and clarinet, which is not easy to do, but there's a wide range of what you can get away with. And so when we're looking at awarding a student with an outstanding soloist award, outstanding tenor saxophone, outstanding trombone, whatever it might be, in my opinion, that award is because this individual was improvising a solo of their own, not playing one of the written solos, although there are many moments when students do recreate those solos. But an outstanding soloist award is for somebody playing that instrument the way it's supposed to be played, improvising on it. You're not getting caught up with any of the basics, the fundamentals. You're delivering a story to the audience, to the listener. And so then a doubler award, in my opinion, would be like if I heard a tenor player playing really great, and then he or she, delivered nicely on one of those written clarinet solos. But in my opinion, like the doubler award is for, technical facility, having those tools under your tool belt, being able to pick up and be proficient on an instrument and not sounding like, maybe you just played a few notes. And so I think it's the difference between being able to just play the notes and rhythms, good tone, good sound, good quality, and then actually adopting that instrument as it is your voice and an artistic voice, sending a message, and playing a meaningful solo as if, telling a story.
Right. Okay, you were talking earlier about leading your section, bringing people to your home, going over things and how much you love section playing. What are some of the most fundamental non-musical things that jazz can teach you about handling business out here and life in general?
There's so much, but in terms of ensemble playing, it comes down to respect, responsibility, time management, in terms of preparation, work ethic, dedication, not only to handling your own business, but also to being able to, be a good community member. and holding others, accountable, but also developing a positive atmosphere when working with others. So all of those qualities are skills that I think anybody would look for, like in a job interview for any item, any topic, any subject. So these all transfer over just to hopefully developing, solid, positive citizens who contribute to society in meaningful ways. And in terms of improvisation and being a soloist, that also brings another element to it of empathy, communication, and listening among a small group. If you're a soloist with a rhythm section, hearing somebody contribute ideas and riffing off of that, not just shutting it down or taking it and running somewhere else. And also it takes patience and thoughtfulness in articulating what you want to say, which we can all, attest to needing in the real world.
Well, I want you to talk even further about the things we discuss a lot of times when I tell you about your own individuality and the need to exhibit a certain type of freedom and lack of restraint in terms of how something is going to be viewed, and just be so definitive and strong in your point of view. And many times we talk and I say, even if it's the opposite of what I like or I want to hear, it doesn't matter how important it is to project your personality and your belief with such force and originality. And I know that because you told me, this is the first time I've heard you say that you were focusing more on section playing, because you're such a fine soloist. And as we talked about earlier, soloing is something that you work on your entire life to be more expressive, more fiery, more definitive, more creative, original. Take me in that arena where you're not in forms that people necessarily identify or know. It's not something that you play that will say, oh, that's nice. It's something where you actually play and somebody can become uncomfortable, or you express a point of view that is discomforting. What is your philosophy at this point of your life in that orbit of thought?
Well, I think at this point, I've just come to terms with the fact that not everybody's going to like me. Not everybody's going to agree with what you have to say. I mean, I think I came up in that vein with the section playing. Like I did kind of come up always wanting to do things the right way, always wanting to do things like get the A in school, get that A plus. If it was an A minus, I wasn't happy.
Right.
And, my parents can tell you, like, I just kind of came up with that. But then I think as you start to see how the world works, see what is influencing people, at least with the way that I've developed to kind of this philosophy in terms of jazz and community and building, strong citizens in community. I think it's just, nope, not everybody's going to like what you have to say. And I think if you are strong and articulate and you can back it up, that's what counts. So for me, if I'm, on the other side, compared to somebody, or maybe even if it's a musical situation, like my mindset has always been like, okay, well, let's get on the stage and play. Like if you can play, cool. Everybody needs to be able to play. But if you're talking and not able to back it up, then that's where the issue lies.
Right. Well, what are you working on in your playing? Like when you listen to your playing and in your music and music that you write, what is it that you see as, I need to get this together. I need to, because some things you know that you're going to work on your entire life. Like some problems in music, it's not, I'm going to do this a couple of years and I'll get better. So if you had to identify a thing that you think about all the time, that you feel, I need to get better with this in my playing, and these are the steps I'm going to take to improve these things, what would that be? A thing, single thing. I'm sorry, I put you in such an ocean of information.
No,
a single thing, just pick one thing and say, okay, I think about this.
I'm trying to let go more. So because I feel like I have a tendency to really overthink in performance settings and composition, even the way I'm improvising. And so I think now that I've gone through my schooling and I've collected all this information, I'm trying to take a step back. And if I write something like, and I don't know what this chord is, I can't decide, like, this is what it is. This is the sound that it is. So I think I'm going more in this direction of like sound over information, sound and meaning and emotion over information, which is something that you and I have talked about in regards to my playing and feeling more free in general, and not caring what people think, and in at least, playing situations. And so for me, I'm actually really actively thinking about rhythm all the time, and specifically with the drums. So I'm trying to write music that leaves enough room for, I want it to be open, and I want it to be even more about the improvisation and the communication, and maybe less about what's on the page, which in the past, probably maybe I went the other way.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have specific musicians you'll check out. Like if you want to know the freest kind of musician in terms of playing with so much human emotion and stuff, and changing moods and feelings very rapidly, would be Ornette Coleman.
Right.
Somebody with rhythm on your same instrument would be Steve Coleman, just because he plays so many intricate and complicated, but still organic rhythms. Do you tend to look at your instrument in that way of music and pick people from all over the spectrum? Or do you tend to stay in whatever kind of critics decide? Or I don't know who decides these camps that people are in. How are you looking at rounding out your playing in terms of who you listen to and your influences?
I think, I don't know about what the critics decide. I guess I'm not like so in tune to that side of things. I agree with you. Like the first person that came to mind was Ornette. And for me, somebody that came to mind in terms of rhythm was Kenny Garrett. And so I think I'm actually just trying to listen. I'm listening more actually for ensemble now, like a quartet sound. Like when I look at somebody, even like Train or like Miles, when you look at people who's, like we were talking about this morning, like having a project versus having a band. And so when I look at like the lifespan of these bands and the different ways that they took shape, that's what I want for myself. Like I want to have that type of depth in an ensemble that allows everybody to be free and create.
Right.
And in terms, so I guess I'm looking at those ensembles more as my influences right now, but in terms of saxophone, I definitely, I don't pay attention too much into the categories of the jazz media, but I would say someone like Ornette, someone like Kenny Garrett, and for me, it would just be, really diving into their records and playing along and figuring out my own ways of, creating different tone colors on my instrument. That's what I'm most fascinated with on saxophone, actually, is not even like technique and notes and things, but just figuring out different ways to bring out tone colors, having my own fingering for a particular note that might give me this muted sound that I want, just kind of trying to break the boundaries of the instrument.
Right. But I just want to clarify one thing, just to get your thoughts on this too. I said critics. I didn't mean so much critics. I don't even know if we have a critical community at this point. I meant more the kind of common knowledge of a generation, the beaten path. Like everybody kind of has the same group of people they listen to, the same records. It's not a law, but everybody, it's like when you teach in a lot of schools, a lot of kids dress the same way at a given time. I just mean the general. How do you address just the general way people in your time will think about things? About playing and what makes something good, or
I see. How do they decide what they think?
Yeah, no, not how do they. How do you try to? We all will naturally fall into that. We fall into our generation. So whatever they believe, we naturally believe that. It's just the spirit of the times.
Right.
Do you consciously think of how can I counterstate this and not be like everybody else? Or do you go deeper into what they are? Just your methodology for dealing with your generation's belief system.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I see what you're asking. I feel like there have been times, like when I was coming up in college and, everybody in the jazz department was listening to this particular person, and I like didn't even know that record had come out, and I was listening to, Nancy Wilson and Cannonball Adderley. And there have been moments like that where maybe I haven't been on the forefront of what's happening right now, and I'm looking back at those older records, or listening to Joe Henderson Big Band. If I could wake up to that record every morning, I would be so happy. And I think at a certain point, I just accepted that's what makes me happy, and that's what inspires me, and that's what makes me want to play the way that I play, maybe as opposed to what's happening over here. And so I don't think that I consciously go against what's happening, because I'm not sure if that feels right or genuine. But I think If I notice that something is different, I will do my best to stay strong in that and not be swayed.
Right.
I think a lot of people with media and technology right now, it's very easy to be swayed and you feel this pressure that you have to play a certain way. And so that's basically now what I'm trying to undo from all the years of jazz school. I don't need to play a certain way. I had to play all those ways to get those grades on those juries, but I don't have to play. I think people will want to hear me play because they'll want me to be me.
Right. Okay. Great. So I'm gonna switch up a little bit because it's always fascinated me that you, at the age of 22, started your own summer camp for younger kids and in a community. So I want to know what inspired you to start it, and how did you get whatever the energy is, or to say, okay, I'm going to do this, I can do it, and then actually go about doing it.
So I had incredible summer jazz camp opportunities growing up. I was really fortunate. My parents aren't musicians, but they were really supportive from the beginning. So I'm very grateful to them for helping me to put me in the places that I needed to be to really excel in the way that I wanted. And so those intense bursts of jazz education, similar to going to a festival like EE, those formative experiences where you're meeting people, you're developing a community, you're hearing what everybody else is playing, seeing what they're all working on. Those were very inspiring to me. And so this community, Rockport, Massachusetts, on the North Shore, just north of Boston, my mom is from there, her family's there. And so I sort of grew up spending a lot of time there. And somebody at one point had donated a ton of money to build a beautiful performance center, which you guys, the orchestra came to a couple of years ago on the water, and it's amazing. And I was noticing for several years there was just classical programming. There was no jazz programming, no jazz education programming. And so my dad had actually encouraged me one day to just go knock on the door, because I was like, I would love to start a jazz camp, And so we walked down and we kind of like reviewed my talking points of what I was going to pitch and what, he's again, not a musician, but the work ethic and the drive, everything really has come from him. And he's always, ever since we were little, we were, volunteering at soup kitchens and coming up with charitable projects. For the community, all this stuff. So it was always about giving back and doing things outside of ourselves. And so I knocked on the door and I just said, "Hi, I'm Alexa. I would love to start a jazz camp." and I'm free because I had an internship from the Eastman School of Music because I joined. They had a music business certificate program that I applied for, and so I actually was getting paid to just do whatever project I wanted. And it turned out that the woman who was the director of education was also an Eastman alumna. And so we hit it off very quickly. And I don't think the organization really knew what was going on. I basically just came in and just made stuff happen. And I think nobody really realized even what was going on. I was sort of coming in from underground, but we used the high school. It was just myself and 7 students the first year. And I worked with them from about 9 to 1. And wrote arrangements for this group, which was, I think, a 9-year-old all the way up to an 18-year-old. So it was very wide learning styles. And, all my music education experience at Eastman had been about being able to, on the fly, customize instruction no matter what your students' needs are. So for me, that was an incredible experience in creating a head chart where the bass player would be challenged, this kid who's applying to Berkeley, and then figuring out what fingerings this violinist needed to do to play Sunny Moon for 2.
Right.
So that was that. And then we just grew it and eventually grew it to the point where it's myself and about 10 faculty members. We've filled slots for about 120 students, and the program's 2 weeks long. And then I bring in guest artists, from all over. So.
Well, how have you kept the community interested in it, and how has it grown across this time?
So in the beginning, I think nobody really saw it coming, and I'm not sure that people knew what the value or the passion that I had for what the value of jazz education is and what qualities it can bring to students. And so eventually, some people started to kind of hop on the bandwagon. I was getting families that would come back year after year. Some families would bring their cousins from across the country to come stay with them. Last year, I had a little boy from France who was summering in Rockport, like spending the summer there. And coincidentally, a few of us on faculty are almost fluent in French, so we were able to have this kid in the jazz band, but he didn't even speak any English. But he had the most amazing experience, and he's pen pals with some of us, across the sea. So, so just little things like that have really helped to develop a sense of community, and I've also developed some really great relationships with just some meaningful, relationships with people who have donated a lot of money to help the program continue, and provide a lot of the students, need scholarships. So it was a lot about organizing scholarships. It was a lot about, in the beginning, it was sort of figuring out some grants, figuring out logistics, how much equipment do we have? We only have 4 microphones. We need 7. Somebody needs to bring, it was very kind of
Right.
touch and go, pick things up really quick and just make it happen. I mean, for a while, all the kids had to go outside and eat lunch in the grass because we didn't have a better space. It was just lots of things like that.
So how is it now? I mean, is it?
It's better. I mean, we are obviously canceled this year, but we've grown from 7 students to 120 students, and we've had such a large number of return students. And we've been able to bring people like Jimmy Green, Ulysses Owens, Lauren Sevion, Sherry Miracle. And I think that actually one of the first years when the orchestra was there, I had Kenny and Paul come in too and hang out with the kids for a bit. And so we've had some students that, it's not, maybe they're not going to be the most amazing professional musicians, but there have been some students that got into Berklee and that was their dream and that's where they're going. So I think we've been able to, the idea was to be able to give a student a consistent opportunity every year. So no matter where they go to school, no matter what their academic year jazz instruction is, they know they have something they can be excited about coming back to in the summer and something to work towards. And so, we still are working our way through logistics and all that stuff. We can always do better. And hopefully we're thinking about growing to an overnight program at some point, but it's definitely improved. Yes.
Fantastic. So I'm kind of rounding it up a little bit, so I don't want you to think, is he going to just keep asking me these questions? But I'm interested in everything that you have to say. It's always it's informative. So you said you spoke about when you first came to EE, you realized, okay, it's other people who are in the jazz, and you got a sense of a larger world. This year is our first international festival. We have 5 bands from around the world. And we're very inspired by the quality of these bands. I want to ask you, can the broader national feeling you experienced at EE, do you think it can translate to the world?
Yes. Yes. I think, now more than ever, we're finding with technology how easily we can band together and in times, positive or negative. And I think just the fact that we are able to reach the couple of bands that are joining the festival as international participants is incredible. And the fact that we are able to spread enthusiasm for this music and for playing this music at a high level is incredible. And with the reach that, the audience that Jazz at Lincoln Center has developed through social media, I think, people are tuning in all over the world to these master classes and to these discussions, and they look forward to them. With my Well-Rounded Musician show, I have a young woman who wakes up in New Delhi at like 5 a.m. to watch it, which is just incredible. And every week I see her and I say, hi, Anya. And so to be able to develop those connections over technology is incredible. And so I would say I'm all for it. And I'm sure there are ways to even when EE doesn't have to be virtual, ways to continue spreading the love and the joy for Duke's music globally.
Well, that leads me right to my final question for you. What future vision would you have for this festival? If next year we said, okay, Alexa, you're doing this, you're running this, what are some of the things you would look at just in terms of a big vision and say, well, let's try this or let's try that, things that just pop into your mind without, you don't even practicalize it, just.
Okay. Well, I love the competition aspect, but I do know, a lot of the same names come in because people are playing, these districts are performing at a high level. and they're in it, year after year, and they're doing a great job. And of course, all the tapes are blind and everything, but I think a lot of the opportunities that come to one area, may be lacking in another. And so what I'm really interested in is seeing how can we actually get in on a lower level, on really the ground level, with districts that don't know about what we're doing, and how can we get them involved. I mean, I love that, we have the musicians going out as clinicians to these schools throughout the year. And one of my favorites was when I went to Celia Cruz, which is one of the bands this year. And I just think there's got to be a way. I want to see the spark with people that don't already know about this, because I think we're getting a lot of people at schools that have been in it, as legacies for many,
Right,
many years.
right.
But how can we draw in some of those schools on the edges that have never experienced this, but would
Right.
potentially be even more, impacted by the.
We have a lot of regional festivals too.
Yeah,
That
and those
touch
are
on schools
great.
that don't. But I want you to think and put your mind on it and tell us ways that we can. What do you think about from an international standpoint? Do you see anything in the future that you would like to see us, ways for us to grow, or things we should consider?
Yeah, I mean, can we do festivals in other countries? Can we take it on the road? I'll be the first one on the plane.
Well, we'll talk about it. So I want to thank you very much for the time you spent, so many insights, and I also want to thank you for everything that you do. I love your playing is on such a high level of quality. Your activism is unequaled, and you're donating also to artist relief funds. There's nothing anyone could possibly ask of you that they would say more. I always look forward to everything you're doing, your pieces you write, and what you have to say. And I think we just all are very grateful to you. And at this time, if we have any questions or anything that Mr. Taylor could lead us in a good direction, or Mr. Stoll, perhaps we could have him come on and see if his glasses are still working. He could perhaps look at his. But thank you very much, Alexa. And let's see if people have questions for you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Winton. Thank you, Alexa. For this part, we're going to actually ask if anyone has any questions. We're going to use the raise hand feature of Zoom. So in the bottom of your Zoom window, there's a participants button. You're going to click that button, a new window will open, and in the bottom of that, there's a raise hand button. If you press that, then that'll put you to the top of the list. We'll be able to call on you, at which point I'll highlight you so you can speak to Alexa and Winton. We'd love to hear from you. Please don't be afraid to share your video or share your audio. This is for all of our guests who are viewing this via Zoom. Everyone else, please enjoy. If there are any questions, then we're going to throw it back to Mr. Stoll. Don't be afraid to raise your hand. Like Todd. No one yet. You have any questions for Alexa or Mr. Marsalis there?
You could call me Winton. Don't you know? You're gonna call Alexa by her first name. Don't call me Mr. Marsalis if you're gonna call her Alexa.
Fair enough. Miss Tarantino.
You see where you went with that?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Todd.
So Alexa, what have you noticed in it's been 12 years since you were at the festival. What do you think the biggest difference is that you've noticed since you were in?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think people are playing the music on such a high level. Not that they weren't before, but students are really, it amazes me how it feels like they just get better. The performances just get better and better and better each year. I mean, I don't know if I want to hear what we sounded like in 2008, but yeah, it's just like, I mean, I remember I worked with a bunch of students in the Midwest through various other education programs, and I would, see them get out on stage at EE and just play like the most beautiful, trumpet or trombone plunger solo, things like that, where it's like, that's coming out of that little person. How is that possible? So just seeing the emotion, and I think like the sweat and tears that these students are putting in, like it just the dedication just seems to rise every year.
Great.
Well, I just thought of something in reference to Winton's last question was I'd be curious to see, I don't know what type of resources or what type of programs we put together like for the band directors, because I noticed in a bunch of my comments, I kind of had similar comments across the board for saxophones, and I joked that I should put together a national tour on saxophone scoops, the how to,
Right.
the
Right.
saxophone scooping 101, but that would be something interesting too, just in terms of, not every band director is familiar with every instrument and what is required on every instrument. So giving everyone the kind of the rundown and the insight on that from that side of the stage. We're talking a lot about the students, but what about the band directors too?
Yeah, that's something that a lot of our EE regionals are starting to become like mini band director academies. So
good. Yeah. I went to a few and they were very fun. Very fun.
Yeah, and the idea is to reach more directors for sure.
Well, we're going to be calling you about the things that you observe, and we always have stuff for you to do. Because
Excellent.
we want to see improvement, and it's important for us to follow our young leadership also. That's very important for us in this time. And Todd and I always say we don't want to be those old guys messing everything up.
Amen. Amen.
Don't worry, I got you guys. I'm here.
we need you.
My eye on you.
Look, we need
Please.
you. We need you. We're not fighting with you. We need you.
No, I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So I want to thank everybody. Todd, are you closing us up or what?
Yep.
DT? I
Yeah,
go off
absolutely.
script. I have a script here with something on it. Y'all got to forgive me. I'm like Todd. I don't even waste my time looking at stuff now because I know I can't see it. So, but I want to just thank everybody for tuning in. Of course, thanks to Alexa and all of our sponsors. I talk about Jack all the time. Susan is still with us, and Gail and Al. We belong long term, so many years. They've been supporting it, being a part of this. Always give people a sense of the community and how much love and trust is between us over these years. And I remain grateful, and of course, our institution remains grateful for that type of just lifetime investment. At this time, it's over 20-something years. There's no way for us to ask for better people to be involved with. And we see the result of a lot of our work in the early years. And with what we see in Alexa, just her level of engagement and intelligence, and in Riley, the same kind of fire about the festival. You see, we're going to be in good hands for years to come. So Thank you all.
Yeah.
Todd.
Thank you, Winton. In closing, again, thank you to Alexa and to Winton and for all of you participating. We'd like to invite all of you to participate in welcoming our finalist bands this year in our annual Cheer Tunnel, which is at 3:15 today. Every Essentially Ellington Festival kicks off with our staff, our volunteers, friends, musicians, cheering on each band as they make their way through our halls and into Rose Theater for the first time. And this year, we took the celebration online. We welcome you to be part of the festivities and cheer on the bands by streaming the Cheer Tunnel at Jazz at Lincoln Center's Facebook Live or live stream, immediately followed by the Q&A with the students, Winton, and members of the Jazz Lincoln Center Orchestra. If you want to find the links to see this, you go to our website, jazz.org/EE25 for the complete schedule. We hope to see many of you at the exciting opportunities to celebrate Essentially Ellington over the next couple of days. Thank you again for your support. And for any new friends, we ask that you consider making a gift to our organization in the name of this amazing program. We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you down the road. Thank you.
All right. Well said. Well spoken.